Look, officer, no one has checked me out. I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm peacefully walking in my own country. I began to rant. But I'll tell you the people you should be checking out. It's those motorists who are killing the moose, killing the bears and porcupines. I see plenty of roadkill, sometimes three carcasses a day, and drivers are killing each other in head on collisions. Plus, they pollute the environment with their nasty exhaust fumes. They are spoiling the peacefulness of nature with their noise pollution. They are the criminals. They are the culprits. There are thousands of them out there on this highway, and it is them that you should be checking out. The officer was puzzled, but before he could reply, I took off in a huff and stormed down Highway 17. I was angry. Miss Mr. Sweetie Pie Swami, as I'm sometimes called, had turned had turned into a monster. I was mad, but felt justified, like an activist who raises his voice to protest the inequities of society. I shouldn't admit this, but I felt good walking and talking with purpose. After the incident in Wawa, I was a little leery about policemen, even though the latest encounter caused no real harm. There was no real police brutality, albeit in my books he was a little aggressive and somewhat misdirected. I moved on and decided I shouldn't let that experience ruin my relationship with the police. Looking back over the years, interactions between Krishna monks and policemen have been rather clumsy at times. During my first summer as a monk, when I was a tall and lanky lad, I'd often be out on Yonge Street in Toronto, approaching pedestrians without literature. One day, two officers who were also rookies in their chosen profession pulled their cruiser over to investigate me. In a jovial fashion, they asked if I had bird poop on my nose, referring to the light earth colored marking on my forehead. They had a good laugh trying to humiliate me, but I was on a mission of Krishna and just continued going about my business. Another time, near Young and Bloor Streets, a patrol officer observed me talking with pedestrians, and it soon became obvious that he didn't like what I was doing. So he got in my face and shoved me against a brick wall of Stollery's men's wear store. He was physically harsh and, in a gruff voice, said I should leave. But after moving a few steps away from him to regain my personal space, I stood my ground. I felt I had a right to continue communicating with the public, and that's exactly what I did. These two instances were rather mild compared to what some of my peers went through in other parts of Canada and United States. In time, our relationship with the constabulary in Toronto drastically improved, mainly after a meeting involving the police chief, a room full of constables, and some of our monks. It was a chance to get acquainted with each other. From then on, the police began to look at us as harmless, pious, spiritual group, and our perception of them was as Kshatriyas, or martial men and women, out to serve and protect. We gained mutual respect for each other and have had a good relationship ever since. Now back to Trans Canada Highway in 96. 2 or 3 days later, about 100 kilometers down the highway, I occupied a rare telephone booth located in a tiny hamlet. I was talking with someone at my home base in the Toronto Temple when I noticed a vehicle pulling up and parking right beside the phone booth. Turning my head, I saw the familiar logo of the Ontario Police Province or Provincial Police. I pretended not to notice, and when my call was over, I flung open the telephone booth and was about to continue my walk. Being still somewhat frazzled from my last encounter with the officer in Wawa, I decided to ignore this one. It's not my usual style, but I walked right past him as if he was an invisible man. With his window rolled down, the stocky man in an officer's uniform said something that rather surprised me. You don't have to ignore me, he said in a grave tone. He then broke into a genuine smile, almost as if to compensate for the last officer's behavior. Perhaps they had a chat with each other on over their two-way radios. I know what you're doing. It's a great mission. Please take my card and call me if I can be of any help to you, he kindly said. By the way, how's the walking going? I smiled as I accepted his card, and we had a nice chat about my journey. That conversation broke the ice and more than made up for my previous encounter with the officer in Wawa. Still smiling, I walked away, thinking citizens and law enforcement officers can communicate congenially, as can a man of the cloth and a warrior.